Welcome to the Saturday Morning Block Party Podcast. I'm your host, Norbert, and I'd like to tell you all Happy Black History Month. Since it's that time of year dedicated to studying and celebrating Black history, I can't think of a better time but to talk about some of our favorite cartoons created by Black people. For this episode's main discussion, I picked some really good shows that I recommend that all of you watch. We're going to be talking about the Boondocks, Static Shock, Black Dynamite, and at the end, we're going to have a couple minutes of discussion about some other shows. We're going to be going kind of deep into these shows. Most of the discussion will be revolving around how these shows are relevant to Black culture and what impact came from these shows having Black people spearheading them. Helping me today are Walter Bryant and David Clarke from Offshoot Comics. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'll see you again at the end for some closing thoughts and footnotes. The Boondocks is a show on Adult Swim created by Aaron McGruder. We talked about it in our first episode and a little bit in the Christmas special, but it's based on the comic strip, The Boondocks. The show stars in mostly Black cast. Most of the characters are Black, and that's really important to the show because a lot of it is dealing with commentary and criticism on American culture and Black culture in America and how they interact. What do you think of the Boondocks?
I actually really liked the Boondocks up until the third season. It seemed that they kind of lost it in the third one, but the first two, like especially the one with Martin Luther King in it, I thought that one was less funny and more speaking directly to Black people. You know? Yeah. That's not why Dr. King went through all that. That's not why the people in the civil rights movement went through all this. Was so that we could have, Kanye West. That was not the goal.
Yeah, and I personally, I love the show. I was really, really fond of it in the first season, but I also have children. So, like, by the same token that I really like the show, and it has a really strong message, it's kind of a double-edged sword for me there, because I really like the show and I really like what it represents, but I can't let my kids be a part of it.
Yeah, they'll just have to wait till they're older, I guess.
Yeah,
a lot older.
But see, even still, like I still, they're my kids, so I still cringe a little bit. Like when my oldest child is watching things like that, I still cringe a little bit because I'm sitting there with her, and she's like almost 18 years old, but it still bugs me some. Still though, that's a really big deal for us to have a show that's basically about us.
The show has a lot of little moments in it, it has little touches that some people might not notice, but for me, I grew up in Detroit and I'm Black. I grew up around a lot of Black people, and there was just tiny things that made me think, yes, this really connects with me. I can tell that a Black person made this because this just makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's true. Not deep South, but I'm from Tennessee. So for me, there are a lot of things that actually sort of would have gone over my head about 15 years ago, that since I've gotten to California and I'm in a more urban setting, I'm like, oh, okay, I totally understand that now. There's a different sort of life that comes from being where I'm from in the rural setting. And there's a different sort of racism, kind of more in your face than it is around here. So what happens on that show, it wasn't something that I really understood too much until a few years ago.
One of the really good episodes in the show that I really recommend, even if you're not going to watch the entire series, I recommend you watch the season 1 episode, Return of the King.
Martin Luther King Jr. was shot in Memphis, Tennessee on April 4th, 1968. He was critically injured. Dr. King fell into a coma. The world waited for news of his fate. There were no riots. Time passed. King faded into memory. There was no national holiday. Then, on October 27, 2000, 32 years after he was shot, Martin Luther King Jr. came back.
And in the New World, he was ostracized because after 9/11, he said, as Christians, we believe that we should turn the other cheek, so he got branded as anti-American. And Huey Freeman, one of the main characters of the show, who is this little 10-year-old Black revolutionary, they team up together and try to make a radical left-wing Black political party. Huey Freeman was trying to tell Dr. Martin Luther King that the reason things were the way they are, like Martin Luther King was walking around in dangerous neighborhoods, and it seemed like what he fought for didn't really get any progress. Huey Freeman was saying that the reason is people need to hear the truth. They've gotten complacent. The only way to make change is to tell them the kind of truth that makes them get angry and get up and do something.
The whole episode was very well written in what it was talking about, and the part that kind of got me upset when I first watched it was, how dumb a lot of the black people were acting. But then I looked around, I'm like, oh crap, that's how a lot of us act, and I'm like, that's even more upsetting.
Yeah, I think with a lot of shows that have social commentary, a lot of times the social commentary actually just goes over our heads. And then with a show like that, I mean, many of the episodes, the people that I know who watch it, they're purely entertained and they have no thoughts about it whatsoever. And this is a show that actually is supposed to evoke a lot of thought. So then when an episode like that comes on where, Martin Luther King Jr. is looking at what he was supposed to have accomplished and sees that he was trying to accomplish isn't what we are holding on to right now. Like the people who are supposed to affect, people like us who are supposed to affect, who are supposed to look at that and say, oh my God, we need to be better. We're not getting that response from it.
Yeah, and I love the ending after Dr. Martin Luther King made his final speech talking about how a lot of us need to get our act together, and it was the kind of truth that Huey Freeman was saying that people needed. There was this little news montage, and it was saying stuff like black dropout rates plummeted, and it had the NBA were refusing to play basketball until the troops were brought home from wherever, and that was really interesting to me, and it was really optimistic, and just thinking, wow, if people actually work together and united to a common goal, this is what we could accomplish.
Right, except nowadays they just shoot you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then, there's too many of us who are thinking I instead of we. So, I mean, and again, like what you said, that episode actually is pointing out the kind of power we would have if we all stood up and stood for a common goal. But again, there are so many of us who don't really care about the social commentary of any of this and just think, oh, well, some other person's going to do it.
Right. I mean, back in the slave times, how they would turn everyone against each other, like I would suggest to anyone listening to this, go look up the Willie Lynch letter. He was obviously a white guy back in the day. And he wrote a letter to the slave owner saying, if you do what I say in this letter, you will keep, the black people destroyed for 300 years. Well, 300 years from that letter was 2012, and it looks like he's getting some bonus years right now, kind of turn people against each other. It's kind of like the whole, the whole crab mentality, as soon as one tries to get out of the pot, the other just drag it back down, or you're going to suffer. And that's kind of, unfortunately, how we all are now. Well, not us specifically, but, the black community.
It's funny that you bring up the crab metaphor because they actually used that in one of the episodes of the Boondocks in season 3. And it was the episode, the whole plot thread, the nigga moment. Well, it was in relation to that, so it's really appropriate that you would bring it up.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the best way to explain a lot of what happens with us.
And something that was really interesting to me in another season 1 episode, The Itis, was kind of exploring the idea that, yes, we have some parts of our culture that have been around for a while, but we really need to look at everything and really examine it and not just follow it because that's the way we've always done it. The Itis is about Robert Freeman, Granddad, sells this super addicting burger called the Luther Vandross. And at the end, the Luther Vandross ends up being kind of an allegory for drugs because people get addicted, they lose their jobs, they end up committing crimes so they can afford more of this burger. And at the very end, there's this little discussion on where some of soul food comes from. Like, some of it is food that slaves ate because that's what the white people would throw away. That kind of got passed down. And even though that's our culture, even though that's our tradition, it's not really, we have to really look at it and be like, okay, this is okay sometimes, but it this food is bad for us.
Yeah, but I thought it was really cool though. Like, I mean, even though the food was totally horrible, I love how it kind of spoke about, like I actually never knew that there was a name for it. I just knew that we would all eat, and then immediately the house was quiet for like an hour. Everyone went and laid down, and then later on the night you came back for seconds. But I had never heard the term itis before.
I grew up hearing that term.
Yeah, so did I. Like that's something that in the South especially, that's what it's known as. Now we're not the only people who do it. It's just attributed to us.
Yeah.
I mean, heck, an entire time set aside for that after you eat. It's called siesta.
We need that. We need that every meal.
Yeah. Need more restaurants with beds in them.
Right?
Yeah, no, that's not a term that shocked me. I like in that episode. The only thing that shocked me about that was actually that it was allowed to be said.
Yeah, I didn't think that anything pertaining to black people would be allowed on TV because racism.
That's really interesting. I never thought of that.
But yeah, I mean, usually you think they want to. I mean, sometimes it's not even about being racist. They don't like putting stuff that has to do about black people or any other race for that matter, because they think that white audiences won't identify with them. Which is like, yeah,
it scares them.
Well, yeah, it scares them because it's like, well, I don't understand that. Well, you know what? The world's not just about you, but so much. I mean, like there's 7 billion of us. It's not all going to be about you. I was shocked that they got on there, and basically anytime a black show makes it on, it's surprising,
Yeah, and again, when Boondocks first came out, I thought it was only going to last like 2 or 3 episodes,
right.
Because it was too black. I mean, there's just no other way to put it. It was just too black. There was too much of us being us and talking about them, and not only that, but being allowed to actually say how we felt about them on TV where they could see it.
Like the first episode ever with when where he's like what was it 9/11 was an inside job, Jesus was black, and Ronald Reagan was the devil. And then Granddad was like, he's like, boy, we having that dream where you telling the white people the truth again. And he's like, you tell the white people the truth? I'm gonna find a white man right now, lie to him. I saw that when I was like, I must have been 16 or 17 when I saw that, and I was like, I am in for this show.
Yeah, that was an amazing opening scene. And speaking of words, was surprised they could say on TV nigga or the N-word. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, personally, like I don't actually agree with using it. I'm surprised they get away with saying it as often as they do on Cartoon Network. But yeah, it's interesting, especially when you want to watch it with some of your friends who happen to also not be black. It makes things a little awkward.
Yeah.
Yeah, or it makes them feel like it's okay for them to let me just repeat those lines. You know what?
Yeah, it's like
you're still not black.
It's like with rap music. If we're both in the car, both sing along to our favorite song, and the N-word comes up, I can say it, and you will censor yourself. It's like, but yeah, I mean, it's interesting that they use it, and I don't know if it's just a statement on how often black people use it, or I could go without it.
Yeah, the way I look at it, I don't act like it's Voldemort, because, like, in this conversation, I can say nigga, but I'm not calling anybody that.
Right. Yeah, but I think, I know they say it's us trying to take the word back. There is no meaning in taking back a negative word. I mean, it's in its original meaning, it's still negative. Some of the feminist movements want to take the word slut back. No, slut is still a bad word. What you do is just say, do not call me that. Do not associate me with that word. You can't. I mean, like it'd be like if I called someone horrible. Like, no, I'm taking that word back. You can't. It's still a bad word. Like, that's what it means.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then token, like someone can make the same argument and say, well, yeah, but see, for the longest time we used the word bad and bad meant good. Yeah, no, but it's still bad.
Yeah, but thankfully we don't do that anymore. That died. Jackson's bad. After that, it was over.
Yeah. But I mean, I understand people when they say that, they're trying to take the power away from the word, but you take the power away from the word by killing it, not by making it a part of your dialect.
Because if we had killed it, we wouldn't be talking about it right now.
Yeah. And the Boondocks did an entire episode about this, and I like that it really didn't take a stance. It just looked at all of the different parts of the argument that we've discussed, and it just leaves it up to the audience to decide if it's right.
Now, I think it's wrong for anybody to use the word nigga at any time. Excuse me, hold on. Hey, Jesse, what's happening, my nigga?
The problem with restraining speech is who gets to set the rules. If it's only okay in a certain time or place, who gets to say what time and what place? Bill Cosby?
But yes, as a matter of fact, I get to set the rules about what is appropriate to say and what is not appropriate to say.
I mean, like, with the way that David and I were raised, we're both, Christians, and we're both pastors' kids. So we have a different way of looking at the world than, say, a kid who was raised on the streets or whatever. So for us, you meet that bad head on, but you also face it down and you say, okay, we're trying to get rid of you. For someone else, then maybe it is facing it down and then making it a part of themselves. We're not trying to be judgmental, but at least for me, you don't take the power away from the word by using it.
Right. I judge often, actually. Like, yeah, I mean, I don't go around saying you suck as a person. I mean, it just,
yeah, you do.
I do say that, but I try and deliver the message in a way that's helpful. Try and tell people, look, that's not a good thing to call yourself, like, ever. It's not ever going to change because the definition is still the same.
Yeah, like women who call these, right. like why would you ever do that and then think that that while you're using that same disrespectful word with each other, that then I shouldn't use it towards you.
Right. I mean, it seems like, specifically coming to, talking about the N-word, it seems keeping that alive is kind of like giving points, I guess, to like the old school white racists.
Right.
Because like they're still just sitting around like, look how dumb they are.
Yeah.
Like, we call them that to make them feel bad, and they still doing it, and
And then my white friends, the few white friends who are brave enough to actually talk about this with me, one of the first things they want to say to me is, I don't understand why I can't say this to you if you guys are saying it to each other. And you know what? I don't have a real answer for that.
Yeah, there is no real answer. It's just saying, well, we don't want you to say it, but why not? You're saying a horrible thing. Why can't I say the horrible thing?
Right, and that's a totally valid question.
It's either no one could say it or everyone could say it, and I would prefer if no one would say it. But it's hard getting mainstream Black American, because then they come down saying we're Uncle Toms or trying to be white or something. Like, no, I just try to have self-respect for myself.
A lot of the characters in the Boondocks are personifications of different aspects or archetypes of Black culture. Like Uncle Ruckus, he represents internalized racism because he is clearly a Black man, but he's convinced himself that he has this disease called vitiligo, the opposite of what Michael Jackson had, and he's really a white man and he really hates Black people. Another example is Thomas Dubois. He represents like upper middle class Black person who, in some people's eyes, is kind of pushed away from what you traditionally think of Black culture, might be kind of excluded. And Riley is representing this stereotypical view of rap culture.
They seem pretty spot on. Like, I know for, when it comes to characters like not Uncle Tom, regular Tom and Uncle Russ, as far as that, separating yourself from Blackness or even hating Blackness. Because I have a lot of friends who are Black, and I have some that are other minorities. Where we were raised in like a all white private school, a lot of them tend to act how they think white people would like. They tend to act as if they are white, and they tend to turn against causes that are usually for them. Like, they would say things like racism doesn't exist, it's all in your head, people aren't really looking at you different, and they tend to forget that
a Klan member tried to kill me 15
exactly
years ago.
Like, you are not white. It's like, you are not, and Boondocks gets that point across very well, because even Uncle Ruckus, you see him being used the whole show.
Yeah, I mean that's that's one of the more amazing aspects of this show. Also, is the fact that, again, like we were talking about how this show tells white people the truth. It also tells us the truth, and it tells a lot of us who want to bury our heads in the sand that, you know what, this stuff is still here. You know, you have to deal with it. The thing about it is, though, the problem, I guess, with that comes with the fact that it's a cartoon. There are quite a few of us who will go, I don't watch cartoons. And there are a few of us who will watch this show and then say, yeah, well, it's a cartoon, though. I mean, you don't really take that seriously. That's just there for entertainment value. No, it's a social commentary. But you're not looking at it that way. You're not taking it seriously because of the format. The format has nothing to do with it. It's the truth behind the format that matters.
All right. And I think with Boondocks, I think it wasn't on long enough for people to catch on. Like with like the Daily Show or with South Park, they were on long enough. Boondocks only had 3 seasons, and let's be honest, their release schedule wasn't very regular. You know, you had season 1, then 8 years later, season 2, and then, you know, they got around eventually in the next century to season 3. I think if they had a regular release schedule and they had kept it up like South Park does, where it's every 6 months you get new episodes, I think they may have been able to make an impact, but they were on and off too quickly.
Yeah, and at least in the beginning of the series, I really like the way they handle this stuff because you can clearly see what these characters are supposed to be representing, and they do that without hitting you over the head with it, but it's still clear, and they're not one note. It was really good. And thinking about this, Tom is even more interesting than I used to think he was, because on one hand, it's showing how silly it is for people to be mad at upper middle class black people saying, oh, you're uppity, you're stuck up, you think you're white. Like in the debut episode he was in, the trial of R. Kelly, all it to have the jury turn on him was for the defense to say he's married to a white woman. And at the same time, the show still likes to poke fun at him, and the show still likes to poke fun at him. He's a really naive and goofy character who doesn't quite fit in. And there's also his character thing where ever since he was a little boy, he has a unreasonable fear of going to jail and getting anally raped. And
yeah, that's a big thing with his character.
Yeah, even though it's wrapped up as being something funny, I think that it's worth looking into, because it's not just, oh, this character has this irrational fear. Because this fear represents the black people like this who are what they are not stereotypical black people. The fear of them losing that status, the fear of them going to jail being a statistic.
Well, yeah, but I mean, that's not, it's not the most irrational of fears. I mean, you know, especially if you're looking at certain areas of this country, there are places where you really are being watched, and you really are, you know, people really are actually trying to tear you down. I mean, think about how many times we've seen sports stars, you know, they rise to the top, and then everybody on the planet wants to see them fall. You know, everybody's trying to tear them down. You know, like it happens a lot, and it's not just us. It's like everybody is waiting for that person to fall flat on their face, and then when they do, we all revel in it. It's not the most irrational of fears. There's this one quote that basically says, you know, maybe I'm paranoid. That doesn't make it not true.
You know, in real life, but it's just funny that the show plays it up so much. Like, I have to return this book to the library, or else I'll get anally raped.
Yeah, that was a pretty funny episode.
Yeah. Okay. Now of course it plays up extremes, and again, that's part of the fun of this show, and also what's great about this. They take that person and they make them into a caricature of what's actually happening. But the genius of it is that if you are paying any attention, you can see yourself inside the caricature, or you can see that person inside the caricature, and you can pull out the truth behind it.
Any more thoughts on the Boondocks?
No. I think we covered all the things that they had to talk about.
Yeah, they need a season 4.
No, they don't. No. Season 3 was horrible, and Black Jesus was also horrible.
But we're talking about Boondocks.
Yeah.
Our first episode of Saturday Morning Black Party was talking about season 4, and that's just an awful season. It should not have existed.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about Static Shock.
Fight the criminal, chase the bad guys. resist, then you that. You see what? Get trapped. In my eyes, I got the power. Bullets from the static shower. Criminals get twisted. This superhero gifted. Bell ring, I'm back in school. Nobody know what I do. Okay, superhero Static Shock.
All right.
Static Shock was this Saturday morning cartoon on Kids WB. It was part of the Bruce Timm DC animated universe. So it was in the same universe as Batman the Animated Series, Justice League, Batman Beyond. And it's about this 15-year-old kid named Virgil Hawkins, who is, by the way, named after the first African-American to be accepted into law school, or to be rejected from... I think it's accepted from law school. I know he got rejected first, but anyway. And one day he gets exposed to this experimental gas, and he gets the power of electricity and becomes superhero Static Shock. And it was created by Dwayne McDuffie, who founded Milestone Comics. What do you guys think of Static Shock?
Static Shock is actually one of my favorite shows of all time. I mean, really honestly, up until that show, you know, we had like Black Lightning, I think was Black Vulcan on the Super Friends, and that was about it as far as black superheroes went. And every now and then you would get some person, like you would get Storm or something, but you never, especially on a show that was about the character, you never got a main that was African American. So Static Shock was groundbreaking in that, but it was also a good show.
Yeah, I mean, and the cool thing about it was like, I'm a little bit younger than Walter, so like when Static came on, like I was a kid and I had never seen a show where the main character looked like me and wasn't lame, you know. So it was pretty cool, and it was refreshing to see the white guy as the sidekick, comic relief for a change.
And he had a good family.
Yeah,
you know, he was a smart kid. He got a scholarship to a science camp because he was smart. I mean, like every stereotype that ever been put on about us on any show was thrown out the window for a good show about an African American kid.
And they still were able to talk about the not so fun parts, like I think his sister's boyfriend, Rubber Band Man or whatever. How he was like a thug, or like they were able to tackle all those issues without it being stereotypical, And I thought that was really well done.
Yeah, Static Shock is still one of my favorite cartoons, and he is one of my favorite superheroes. I think the show was really well done, and it tackled a lot of issues, even though it was occasionally heavy-handed, like the gun violence episode. Like, Sons of Fathers is probably the latest TV show the latest kids cartoon to tackle racism like that. And that came out, 10 years ago. I don't think any kid show has done it since then. Because Static's best friend, Richie, like you said, was a white guy. Dad is a racist, and Richie has a falling out with his dad. He runs away from home, and then Richie's dad and Virgil's dad bond over trying to find Richie when he's been kidnapped by Ebon and his crew.
That one and a few other things that DC was doing at the time surprised me that they actually got on air. It's like I'm surprised someone didn't go, oh wait, hold on, that's too real. Let's not do that. Let's have an episode where they go to like Candyland or something. No, but I was very impressed with Channel 5, or WB for doing that. That was pretty ballsy.
Yeah, it really, honestly, that entire show was just groundbreaking on a million different levels. I mean, where they started off by saying, oh, by the way, Virgil's mom died saving people's lives, and so this show is going to start off with him being lost because he lost his mom recently and he doesn't know what to do with himself. That tackling those types of issues. I mean, usually with African American shows, unfortunately, they're all about singing, dancing, thugs, or sports. Right. That we don't get real stories.
Right. And and back when Static and Justice League, back when those things were on, they tackled those episodes or those things. Like when Jon Stewart went back in time to World War II, and he couldn't use the Green Lantern ring, and so he was trying to lead these Marines over, to this whatever he was doing. And because he was black, they didn't want to listen to him. And he showed him his tattoo. He's like, I am a Marine at such and such, blah blah blah. You will do what I say. And they fell in line with the fact that they even tackled that they wouldn't just listen to him because he was black was impressive.
Yeah, because you like if you were to version of history, then black people were in everything.
Right,
like
it
in
was normal.
Cinderella, black people were there, and it's like it's just. I think again, especially now, people are so interested in integrating everything, which is a good thing, but we almost forget where we came from because of it.
I haven't seen that episode of Justice League in a while, but from what I remember, it seemed like it wasn't because he was black, but it was because he was this random guy who came out of nowhere in this weird costume that they wouldn't listen to him.
I know, like I watched this episode of Justice League about a year ago, and it was because he was a random black guy in a weird costume.
Yeah, if it was a white guy, they might listen to him a little bit better. I mean, let's just be honest.
I mean, yeah. This is what was it, World War II?
World War II, yeah.
Yeah. So no, it was the black guy shows up out of nowhere and starts giving them orders, and they just weren't having it.
Yeah. Right.
And another thing that Static Shock tackled is the need for black role models. And we're talking about Jon Stewart. That is one of Static's role models. That was really good. They had an episode when they thought he was going bad, and it really hurt Static on a personal level. And one of the best episodes of the show is Static in Africa, where the family vacation in Ghana and Static meets the most famous superhero in West Africa, who is Anansi the Spider, who is really awesome. He's got illusion powers.
Right.
Yeah, I like that episode a whole lot. The fact that, Static got there. And actually, they kind of quoted something that Richard Pryor said at the beginning of that episode, where Richard Pryor said that when he was walking around Africa and that when he was there, he didn't see niggas, he saw black people.
Right.
And he said, he shed a tear because for the first time in his life, he realized that there was a place where he belonged. And he said after that, he was never going to use that word again.
Right.
So, Virgil at the beginning of that episode is talking about, he's flying around and he's like, I'm here and there's black people here. I'm just a kid. I'm not a black kid. And he asked Richie, is that what you feel like every day? And Richie's like, yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Because to him, in this world, as a white kid, he's just some guy, and like he's got the chance to either be amazing or normal, but he can be whatever he wants to, and it's never attributed to his race.
Yeah.
Right. And if he snapped and shot a bunch of kids at a school, that's just that one crazy guy over there. But I even today on Yahoo News, I was reading about the Black Little League team that got their win stripped from last year because they had recruited kids from outside of their boundaries or whatever. And I'm looking through the comments, people are saying, see, look, this reflects on black people. It makes you guys look really bad. And I'm like, why does everything anyone who happens to be black does reflect on us? I mean, does that mean if you are of German descent, who makes all y'all look bad? Or is it just Adolf has a problem? But I really like the episode. I mean, they even talked about, like, I have never heard W.E.B. Du Bois talked about on a show
any kind
for white people ever. And they mentioned him in the first 5 minutes.
And right over here is the W.E.B. Du Bois Center, where the great American civil rights leader is buried.
That's right. He was a proponent of Pan-Africanism.
Didn't we get a shot for that?
Pan-Africanism is the belief in the unity of all black people and their cultural connection to Africa. It says that the blood and history we share binds us together as strongly as any national border. One people, many lands. Can you feel it?
Yeah, I feel it.
And they talk about how they got independence from Britain and all that stuff. And I mean, shoot, the fact that they even said Ghana, because normally when they go to Africa, they were in Africa, as if it's one generic country.
Yeah, and then and again, they started off by saying 16% of all slaves came from Ghana. Ooh.
He said slaves.
Knowledge. And I liked how they had one of the Ghanaians they met said, "Hey, who knows? We could be cousins." And like the way I took it, it's like, yeah, who knows? Because our history was erased. It's like I was hoping they'd go that, but obviously that'd probably get them canceled for talking about too much truth now. But I thought it was a really good episode, and it was cool that they actually picked a country and not just the continent.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they had a superhero based off of an African legend.
Right.
Yeah, Anansi the Spiders, and is actually an old fable, and I read about that in class when I was in school, and that was after I had seen the Static Shock episode, so I was kind of confused. Wait, this isn't a superhero, this is a spider. What?
Right.
Yeah, an actual spider that got bloated and was like feeding off of what was he feeding off?
I don't listen to things about spiders because spiders freak me out.
But yeah, no, Anansi the Trickster. That was I read about that in college also, and so then I'm almost 40, so I actually read the story of Anansi before I saw this episode of Static Shock. So for me, it was like, oh my god, they got Anansi. Oh, it's awesome. So yeah.
Yeah, for me, I was like, another spider guy. I hate that. I'm not a fan of spiders.
Oh, and then you notice how like Virgil does the Spider-Man web thing, trying to get Anansi to use his webs. That was funny to me.
Yeah.
I'm not that kind of spider.
Right.
I'm still waiting for Anansi the Spider to appear anywhere else besides that TV show, because he's just an awesome character.
They should definitely. I think they should bring that entire cast back, though. Like that whole show. I think it deserves an update. I mean, because I don't know if you watched Young Justice, but Static Shock got to be in there for like 3 episodes, and then they canceled the whole thing.
Yeah, I saw that, and it was kind of funny because in this Static Shock cartoon, as you said, his mom got killed trying to help people. She was shot in the Dakota riots, which is like this show's version of the Rodney King riots. So because of that, Virgil has this super strong aversion to guns in the gun violence episode. This kid was like, hey, you want to see my gun? And he just freaks out and runs out of the house. But in Young Justice, he's kidnapped by aliens and he's trying to escape, and like without hesitation, once he gets the chance, he picks up this alien's gun, and people were freaking out about that, and that was funny to me.
To be fair though, if any 3 of us in an alien ship and we had a chance to get a gun, we're gonna do it because right.
Can argue with that.
I mean, like I don't know if you read the comics, but the reboot of Static Shock, which only got 1 book, he was actually the opposite. He was more of a smart kid who also was trying to be, a gangster. And and he gets his powers right as he's getting ready to go shoot a kid. Like right before he pulls the trigger is when the big bang happens, and then he becomes Static Shock, and he goes on a whole different path. He was saying that God stopped me right before I took that leap.
Yeah.
And even in that version, I think it was still well done because I know kids who are like that too. So. But yeah, Static Shock overall was a good series, and definitely I think DC wants to do something with him because he keeps coming back because he's such a fan favorite. It's just they just can't keep it on because the toys aren't good.
Well, yeah, that's a whole nother problem altogether. The fact that cartoons only get to last as long as the toys sell. It's funny because like Static was done at a time when merchandising wasn't that big a deal, right? Because there is no Static merchandise. You ever see a Static toy?
Yeah.
No, there's no Static merchandise, but the show was constantly doing like 0.75s and 1s, which is like in a cartoon is amazing rating. Young Justice did the same thing because the toys didn't sell, they got rid of it.
Static would make a great movie though, like a great live action movie, which I think I'm fairly certain when Black Panther does really well, you'll see Static and Jon Stewart Green Lantern.
Yeah.
Well, Jon Stewart was coming anyway.
Yeah, because everyone everyone my age, we all grew up with Jon Stewart as Green Lantern, and I was actually happy when they did the Green Lantern live action movie. When everyone my age, white, black, Asian, or whatever, looked at that and said they got him wrong. He's supposed to be black, and I was like, thank you, God. For once, we come out on top on something.
Yeah, I remember when I was a little kid, I also grew up with Jon Stewart as my first Green Lantern, and there was this Duck Dodgers episode where, Daffy Duck in the future as a space commander, one day he accidentally got his suit mixed up with Green Lanterns, and at the end of the episode he returns it, and I'm like, this is the Green Lantern, this is a white guy. What's going on?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. See, like again, I'm almost 40, so like I grew up with Hal Jordan. I knew who Hal Jordan was. That was like I actually remember when Jon Stewart got his power ring.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was like 3 years old, and then it was a big deal because like my mom and my uncles read comic books. So then suddenly Hal Jordan is handing off a Green Lantern ring to this black guy. they had to show it to me. You know, it was like it was the most amazing thing in the world to them because, again, up to then, who we had was Black Vulcan or Black Lightning, and he was probably the most stereotypical black person you could possibly have with lightning powers, and his suit was stupid with a big collar on it, and you know, and he talked funky. But then you get Jon Stewart, a guy who just got out of the Marines, and I think like he was having problems getting a job or whatever, but the Ring picked him, and he was like the most awesome thing. And then he doesn't wear a mask because he refuses to wear a mask. He's like, I'm a black guy who just got chosen to be a super alien cop. I want people to see my face. Right. So he took the mask off, and he's like, Jon Stewart doesn't wear a mask.
He is the only one without a mask, isn't he?
Yeah, he doesn't wear one because he wants you to know who he is.
Him and Guy Gardner, because Guy Gardner is stupid. So like, yeah. He doesn't actually have a reason for it. He's just, I'm dumb, whatever. But yeah, that's interesting. I didn't realize that just right now. He does not wear a mask.
Yeah, no, he wants you to know who he is.
Even after everyone knows who he is, like in Injustice, when he's on Superman's evil crew, everyone knows who Hal Jordan is. Still wearing a mask. But that's okay. But yeah, all those cartoons need to come back, and Static definitely was a miracle that it got on. Really,
actually, you know what one of the funniest things about Static was to me? There's this episode where I think Ebon he figures out that Richie is his friend, and so like all of his crew is like, yeah, well then Static has to be that Virgil kid. And he's like, no, half the guys in the hood have hair like that. You can't just go with that. So yeah,
if they were in like Wisconsin or something, then they would
absolutely know. But yeah, with that it was like, no, you can't just go by that. You can't just say it's his hair and he's that age. No, you got to go with something else. And I love that show, man. It was awesome.
Yeah, it was definitely good.
And the show's creator, Dwayne McDuffie, is really an awesome guy when you look into him. He contributed a lot to animated action during the last couple decades before he died. He wrote a lot of the good episodes. A really good Jon Stewart episode he wrote on Justice League. It had Jon Stewart going back to Detroit, and there was this really, really good opening scene, and we really got a good look into Jon Stewart's character, and I'm just so glad that Dwayne McDuffie did all that he did, and I'm really hoping that all of the future Milestone properties, because they just brought back Milestone Comics, I hope that they can do really good even though that he's not around anymore.
Yeah, no, it's funny that you talk about that, because I had something of an issue with I can't remember which writer it was.
Was it Steel?
Hardware. Okay, well, Hardware, basically was the Milestones version of Steel. And then when Milestones got canceled and started being integrated into the DC universe, they took the writer from Hardware and they put him on Steel. And Steel was doing really well as a comic book at that time, but then it became this really overly political comic, and it died specifically because they stopped talking about being superheroes and started talking about black issues. Now, I love the fact that Static, as a show, integrated black issues with superheroes, because like people are willing to have you talk to them about issues if you entertain them. Again, you going back to Boondocks. If you're entertaining, I'll listen to your issues, but don't preach at me with something that's supposed to be entertaining.
Yeah, and now that you mentioned Steel, I'm hoping that he's going to be in the new direct-to-DVD Justice League movies, because in the newest one, Throne of Atlantis, there was this little scene where they're in Metropolis fighting, and there are these construction workers.
Yeah, and they introduced John Henry Irons. Yeah, that was awesome. Anyone who's a Steel fan that would recognize that, because like
three of you.
Oh no, Steel is one of the best characters they ever came up with, but they totally dropped the ball on him. I think he got like or something like that. And when it became overly political, then the comic got canceled. And it's one of the problems, I guess, that I found was that when white guys were writing Steel, he was just a black guy who happened to be a superhero, or a superhero who just happened to be a black guy. But then when that other guy got on, he became the black superhero, and he was so busy talking about being black that the comic lost its way. I think it's awesome that that we get represented in comics and whatever, but it still becomes we have a message, and it's great that you can aspire to giving out your message and that you can tell people about us, but we have to be entertained, because the first and foremost, this is entertainment.
The last thing we're going to talk about in Static Shock, well, this is really about Dwayne McDuffie, the creator. I have a letter he wrote in 1989. Proposal for a new series, Teenage Negro Ninja Thrashers. In the past year, 25% of all African-American superheroes appearing in the Marvel Universe possess skateboard-based superpowers. In an attempt to remain on the cutting edge of comics, I hereby propose a new series that will fully exploit this exciting new trend, Teenage Negro Ninja Thrashers. When a group of teenage Negroes find cosmic-powered skateboards, their lives are forever changed. A team of distinct characters join together, swearing an oath to use their powers for good. Rocket Racer, a black guy on a skateboard. Night Thrasher, a black guy on a skateboard. Dark Wheelie, a black guy on a skateboard. And their leader, the mysterious black guy on a skateboard, known only as that mysterious black guy on a skateboard.
Oh, that would have been awesome.
That would be a great show today. Like if they put that on Adult Swim, that could go for 13 seasons easy.
Yeah. This is a surefire hit as it contains all of these popular elements. Circa 1974 clothing and hairstyles. Bizarre speech patterns unrecognizable by any member of any culture on the planet. A smart white friend to help them out of trouble they get into. They're heroes who could be you, if you were black, I mean. They're on skateboards. They have an attractive white female friend to calm them down when they get too excited. Face it, Pilgrim, this one's got it all. Have I made my point?
Oh, that would have been awesome.
Yes, I love that he wrote this fake pitch to just say, stop what you're doing. It is ridiculous.
As like I would like to see that actually. Like that would be a totally cool direct to DVD like one shot, 75 minutes.
The last big show we're going to talk about is Black Dynamite.
He's dynamite. So dynamite.
There was this live-action film called Black Dynamite, and it was a parody of 1970s blaxploitation films. It had a kung fu master ex-CIA guy named Black Dynamite, and it was a ridiculously funny movie, and they adapted it to a cartoon on Adult Swim, and unfortunately, it was cut short, only 2 seasons, but it was still a really good show. What do you think about it?
It got canceled?
Yeah.
Okay.
I saw the Michael Jai White movie. That was actually a pretty good movie. And actually the first time I saw the concept art before I realized that there was a live action movie, I was like, it looks like Michael Jai White. So,
yeah, I mean, I like Black Dynamite, and it has a message, and I think it delivers it a little bit better than Boondocks did, at least towards the end of its run. You know, but it's definitely. I mean, Black Dynamite makes that show.
I really love how it goes so over the top in parodying blaxploitation films. Like, Black Dynamite runs and operates a orphanage, which is a mix of a whorehouse and an orphanage, and he and the rest of the main cast are pimps, but it's really ridiculous the way they show it, and they've also got ninjas, and there's this one episode when Richard Nixon was trying to destroy the black community by making drugs super cheap, but then the black community decides instead of taking drugs, they can just sell them to white people at a premium.
Too bad that didn't really happen.
Right. I mean, it was definitely good. Like I like the Michael Jackson being an alien episode.
Yeah, that was amazing.
I love the head ninja in charge. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He's like, ninja, please. I mean, that clan of ninjas was just hilarious to me. Then you had a fiendish Dr. Wu.
The race war.
Yeah, the race. Oh, yeah. Did you see the race war?
Yep.
It was like the actual race.
Yeah,
a race of races.
Yeah. And
the fighting the giant frog on vacation.
Oh yeah. Oh man, there's so many good episodes, and I'm sad to hear we didn't know that until just right now. So thank you for ruining our night.
You're welcome. One really cool episode is the episode about Bill Cosby. Episode where in this neighborhood, Melvin Van Peebles was filming a blaxploitation film in the neighborhood, and if you don't know, Melvin Van Peebles is a real life director and filmmaker. He did a lot of movie making back in the 1970s, and
his most famous one is Sweetback.
It's really funny. The plot is that his actors are getting kidnapped by Bill Cosby because he doesn't like the kind of black people, the behavior or portrayal of black people in blaxploitation. He kidnapped the actors and tried to make them do this version of the Cosby Show.
Oh yeah. I remember that. That one was on not too long ago, actually.
I looked up Melvin Van Peebles on Wikipedia, and this episode is even funnier because in the show his enemies are Bill Cosby and the Black Panthers, but in real life, Bill Cosby loaned him $50,000 so he can make one of his masterpieces, the movie that he had 100% creative control over, and in the show, the Black Panthers are trying to rob and extort him, but in real life, the Black Panthers loved and praised the movie.
Though I don't think I actually ever saw that episode. I know a lot about Melvin Van Peebles, but I didn't see that episode of Black Dynamite. But yeah, what you said is true. Like Melvin Van Peebles and Bill Cosby, especially being the older guard in Hollywood, there was a certain amount of solidarity between black actors, especially back then, because there were so few of us and there were so many people trying to take advantage of us. So yeah, the episode of Black Dynamite, more of a parody there, because the truth of the matter is that they would have each other's back.
Yeah. Have you seen the Black History Month episode?
You know what? I don't think we have. It's weird because I've seen all the episodes.
What happens in it?
This is if you go and look at the history of things, this episode takes place in the second Black History Month ever, and they're watching Roots because it's premiering, and after they watch Roots, they realize, wait, we had it that bad? Our ancestors were slaves and they were treated like that? And
Okay. Now, before you get your slavery shackles in the bunch, we don't even know if this is based on a true story. Roscoe, check out the TV guide and see what it says.
Okay, Black Dynamite. Let's see. It says here that Roots, the miniseries, is based on the true story of blacks being enslaved by white man for 465 years?
No way. That can't be true.
Hold on, there's more. The depiction of slavery in this movie is not at all accurate.
Now, see there? Keep going, Roscoe.
In fact, it was a hell of a lot worse. There's no way on God's earth we could show how bad real slavery was to black folks because they would lose their cotton-picking minds.
The black community gets so outraged that they decide for payback they're going to enslave white people.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I saw that one, yeah. Yeah, with the white slavery thing.
Yeah, how did you like that?
Well, I thought what was kind of funny was that I think this is what white people are afraid of, that everything. I mean, it's funny. Well, like I was thinking that they're actually afraid of that because if you look at all the things that they've done to just people around the entire world over just the last 200 years, I'd be afraid of payback too. I mean, like let's be honest, people have very, very long memories.
Yeah, and like generational memories.
Oh yeah, things like smallpox blankets or treating the Asian countries as your little sex tourism places or the systematic destruction of an entire people while you enslave them. People do not forget about that overnight.
And then most people who are filled with hate are also filled with fear. So then you look at things like lynchings, and you notice that they take like 46 people to go hang one guy. Like that one guy could take out 45 of them. So that last guy is necessary.
And they make it like a spectacle or whatnot, but they call the Native American savages.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, It's interesting.
So yeah, and I mean that the thing about certain aspects of all these shows is that it's entertainment, but they're talking about things that are real. They approach each of these in a different way. They approach each of these issues in a different way. But with each one of them, one of the main threads here, and I think through most Black cartoons, is that there's a certain level of truth that has to be there for us to understand and to buy into the show.
And I actually wonder if when Roots first premiered, if that's the way people reacted, because I know it's a really culturally important film and book, and the way I saw them react, as if they didn't know all this stuff, or as if they were seeing it in a new way for the first time, that was just really interesting to me, and that came out decades before I was born, so I just have to wonder if that's how the people felt, the same way that the Black community in the Black Dynamite episode felt when they saw Roots for the very first time in the second Black History Month in history.
Well, you know what? This is kind of an experiment that actually you could run. You know, we all know Caucasian people. Find Caucasian people, ask them to sit and watch Roots with you, and then their response when they get done. Because I've done this before, and like every blonde-haired, blue-eyed white girl on the planet who sees this movie for the first time goes, "Oh my God!" And they got tears in their eyes. Like, I didn't know that it was like bad for you, and I don't understand how white.
It's like, I don't think it's something they don't know. I think they don't want to know. They know. They all know how bad it is. I mean, it's a willful ignorance, you know. Plus, schools don't help by not ever teaching it. At my high school, after I left, they started being even more super white, and my sister went there. And during Black History Month, all they did was they showed Stevie Wonder, Little Richard, James Brown, and then that was Black History Month. That was all in a day. Then they did a little thing where every day you came dressed up as a different time period, starting from the 40s. So my sister actually went dressed as a Black Panther with a huge and she held the Black Power fist all day. And she made the teachers explain to everybody why she was doing that. And I was proud of her. I was proud of her then.
Good on her. She did a good job.
Yeah.
And that's really a shame that it has to come to that, because you're right, they are kind of erasing this history. Like in Texas, they have these textbooks where they're changing it so that it's not the slave trade, it's the triangle trade. And what else? They have textbooks in school that's saying, oh, the white kids, the Black kids got to stay home and play all day.
Yeah, if I play, you mean be whipped to death. You know, it's like,
yeah.
Yeah, well, meanwhile, my parents are telling me stories about how they had to go outside for 12 hours every day and pick cotton.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, your parents?
Yeah.
Dang.
I'm from the South, remember?
Oh, yeah, Tennessee sucks.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, you know, my mother, her dad, I think, was a slave, you know, so.
Yeah, I think my great grandmother is still on the registry as property. I think it was in Alabama. One of them horrible states. But yeah, like, you know, because the people in my family lived to be about 100, 102. So like my dad's like, yeah, it's not that far back, you know. And people today say, well, it happened a long time ago. For you.
Yeah.
For you, it happened a long time ago.
Any more thoughts on Black Dynamite?
No, I think we got it.
That's all of our big discussion. What other shows created by Black people or spearheaded by Black people do you like? What are the cartoons?
Bill Cosby and the Cosby Kids was pretty cool.
Hey, it's Fred Albert, and I'm gonna sing a song for you. And Bill's gonna show you a thing or two. You'll have some fun now with me and all the gang, learning from each other while we do our thing. Gonna have a good time.
This is Bill Cosby coming at you with music and fun. And if you're not careful, you may learn something before it's done. Hey, hey, hey.
show was completely just escapism. Like it was basically his life growing up. There wasn't really a whole lot to it other than to watch a bunch of black kids playing in the ghetto and then see their black superhero, the Brown Hornet. And I actually just watched the show just for the Brown Hornet.
I kind of like I kind of like Fat Albert, even though it's really old. It somewhat stands up today, even though it's got that 1970s shoestring budget animation.
The show is funny, and I mean, even still, like my kids when they see episodes of it, they like the show. They don't get any of the jokes though.
Yeah, I can understand that. And Bill Cosby made a few cartoons when I was little, really little, like in early elementary school and in preschool. One of my favorite shows was Little Bill.
Oh, Little Bill. Yeah, my kids like Little Bill. Yeah, I had forgotten Little Bill even existed. I mean, but that show, it's a learning show. So, it teaches kids about manners and how to get along and things like that. So, I mean, that's one of those shows that as an adult, I really wasn't paying a whole lot of attention to, but you're quite a bit younger than I am. But you know what show was on, like, just as I was becoming an adult, was Hammerman.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, and again, that goes back to Hammerman and Mr. T. They kind of were the same the same problem that I've had with African American led shows, which is that they're still all about either being in the ghetto, about sports, or about dancing. Like that's what most of these shows have always been about. So the shows that you picked with like Static and the Boondocks, these are shows where, yeah, they embrace the stereotypes to a certain degree, but they also step outside and say, yeah, but we're more than that.
And that was a conversation on Black cartoons. This was a really fun conversation to have. I like how the shows served as a jumping point to talk about different things about Black culture and American society and how those two interact. And it really shows how these cartoons are culturally important in that they can inspire this kind of discussion. Like I said in the beginning of the episode, in the intro, I highly recommend all of these shows. Now, just to note, the Boondocks and Black Dynamite are not kid appropriate, so only let people watch it if they can watch Adult Swim without getting in trouble with their parents. So if they're a little young, just wait a few years, they'll be fine. Some episodes to recommend: The Boondocks, I recommend Season 1, Episode 9, Return of the King, Season 1, Episode 10, The Itis, and Season 2, Episode 11, The S Word. For Static Shock, I recommend Season 1, Episode 8, Sons of the Fathers, Season 3, Episode 3, Static in Africa, and Season 3, Episode 13, Flashback. For Black Dynamite, I recommend Season 2, Episode 1, Roots the White Album, and Season 2, Episode 5, Sweet Bill's Sing-Along Song. I want to give a big thanks to my co-hosts this episode, Walter Bryant and David Clarke from Offshoot Comics. Offshoot Comics is a YouTube channel and a website that do weekly nerd news and reviews. You can also find them on Twitter at Offshoots Comics, and their official website is offshootcomics.com. I'll have the links to all of those in the description. The music in the intro was Judo Flip by Asheru, which is where the Boondocks theme song came from. And what you're listening to now is also from the Boondocks original soundtrack. It is called Thank You For Not Snitching. You can find links to those in the description. We are the Saturday Morning Block Party Podcast. I'm your host, Norbert, and you can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us on Tumblr. We're most active on Facebook and Tumblr. And on Tumblr, we reblog everyday concept art, clips from TV shows, analysis, fan art of all different cartoons. So if you love that, you will want to follow us. You can also keep up with everything we do at SaturdayMorningBlockParty.com. We also have YouTube, and we're available on iTunes, so please check the description for all of those, and please write us a review for iTunes. It really helps us. It helps attract a bigger audience and attract sponsors. Thank you again for listening to the Saturday Morning Block Party Podcast. Have a great Black History Month. We will be back next week with a new episode. Thanks.